Some things to know about rockets before we get started. If you're looking for a detailed overview of the weapon system, go find another video. Rockets don't have a fall off, you either get hit by them or you don't, but the faster you're going, the less you get hit for. Rockets can deal all 4 types of damage depending on what ammo you have loaded. They don't use any capacitor, which means that neuting you does nothing to your DPS. Rage rockets do more damage, faction rockets apply better, and javelin rockets have more range. Alright, I'm done. Let's blow up some spaceships. The Condor has very little damage and very little tank, but it does have some utility and a lot of speed. Most brawl Condors will use a shield extender as well as a neutralizer in order to cap out the enemy and guarantee a free win. However, I tried using a small ancillary repper in order to make use of double webs, and honestly, I don't see the use in adding an extra web to the ship. As much as you can control range, a lot of ships can still apply very well to you and you end up losing the DPS race anyways. You also add a lot of cap pressure on yourself and you usually end up capping yourself out before you can nuke your opponent dry. You'll notice that even though this Rifter has autocannons which doesn't rely on capacitor, their web and scrams still stay on me until the very end of the fight. We also both die at the same time, which I find hilarious. The other advantage that the Condor has, I feel, is catching people off guard, since usually Condors kite, they don't brawl, so like in this clip, the slicer doesn't pay attention to how close they're getting to me, and by the time they realize that I have rockets, they're scram webbed, I'm orbiting them at 500 and they go down pretty easily. Also, yes, I burned out my webs. I wasn't paying attention. I think to fly Kestrel, you need very good rocket skills. Even though the Kestrel has good control and application with its dual webs, other ships can still apply to the Kestrel very well with autocannons or even blasters loaded with null. This is why I feel good rocket skills are necessary. You need to be able to do enough damage to them while they're still applying to you. I find that with the skills that I have right now, I just don't do enough damage to stand a chance against other scram kiters and even brawlers. Okay, so I make a mistake in this fight that ends up costing me a lot of health. You'll notice at the very start of the fight, I zoom into the guns to see what they are, and I start orbiting very close because I think they're beam lasers since the guns are long. But when I'm orbiting it, I realize that they have Gatling lasers on them for some reason instead of the focus pulse lasers, and I end up taking a lot of damage. And when I pull away, I ended up losing transversal and taking a lot of damage. Luckily, because I have dual webs, I can disengage, but again, look how little damage I'm doing to the Tormentor. That's why I feel like you can't really compete with other ships unless you have good skills on the Kestrel. The Breacher is considered by many to be the best tier 1 frigate. With dual webs, it's able to control pretty much every engagement and apply very well with its rockets. However, most Breachers will fit dual reps, which gives it an insane amount of tank. Having access to both an armor repper and a shield booster lets the Breacher pretty much outlive any other tier 1 frigate on the battlefield. You can see in this engagement that the Tormentor does a lot more damage to me than I'm doing to it. It goes through almost all of my cap boosters and nanite paste by the end of the fight. Fortunately, the tank provided by 2 ancillary reppers give me more than enough time to take down this Tormentor. I also found the Breacher to be surprisingly cap independent since its weapon system and half of its tank doesn't rely on cap for it to be effective. So at the start of the fight, I actually tried to use my armor repper first since that uses cap and my shield booster doesn't, but by the time my shields are gone, so is my cap, so I had no choice but to rely on my shield booster for tank. Despite me being unable to use more than half of my modules, I'm still able to force a Tristan to disengage because of the amount of DPS and tank I can still put out without any capacitor.
The capacitor is empty.
Good damage, speed, and control with its dual 15km unheated web make the Vigil fleet issue a strong contender for the strongest Navy frigate in faction warfare. Two of its most common fits are that of either a scram kiter, which is the fit that I'm using, or a web kiter. Web kiting in the Vigil fleet issue is especially strong since most ships can't web you back at 15 kilometers even with a heated web. You are going to want to train missile projection to level 5 because that's a requirement if you want to apply at 15 kilometers with javelin rockets. Or you could spend a lot of ISK on rigs. It's up to you. Despite being a very strong frigate, its tank is not its strong suit. This means warping in at 0 to a brawler or even a scram kiter can end very badly very quickly. Also, I totally forgot to use my drones. Just another example of me being an idiot. The hookbill stands a very strong chance against the Vigil fleet issue simply because it can also apply its missiles very well to it. It essentially becomes a DPS race between the two to see which one can brawl the other down faster. If you're wondering why I'm not covering the hookbill, is because it's just the same as the Kestrel and it suffers from the same issues where if you don't have enough rocket skills, you end up losing DPS races really easily, especially against other Navy frigates. I will learn later that this hookbill only had one web, which definitely makes it a lot harder for them to apply their damage to me. Still, it was a very, very close fight.